What are some declassified government documents that are surprisingly terrifying? This isn't really a classified document, but at one point the US government was telling people to build your own bomb shelter to protect your family. And it showed how to dig an 8-foot by 4-foot by 10-foot hole in your backyard, and if there is a nuclear threat, to get your family and go in there and cover it with a door. So obviously that wouldn't really protect anyone in the case of a nuclear attack. Later it came out that the purpose of telling families to do that was so if there was a nuclear attack on American soil, they wouldn't have to bury as many bodies because the families dug their own grave. So yeah, not classified, but along the same disturbing stuff the US government did. Devil Eyes. https en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/devil_eyes. The plan after 9/11 to make figurines that look like Osama bin Laden and give them to kids in South Asia, after it's left in the sun for a certain amount of time. Its face would peel off to reveal a demon-like visage with red skin, green eyes, and black markings, basically a demon. The objective was to scare kids and their parents so bin Laden and Al-Qaeda would lose support. When the Space Shuttle Challenger was destroyed, it was reported that all 7 astronauts were killed instantly. It was revealed decades later that some, if not all of the astronauts survived the initial explosion, as the cockpit cabin had enough protection to not be breached. For 2 minutes and 45 seconds. They were awake and aware, as they plummeted toward the Atlantic Ocean. Understandably, NASA knew that the news of their terrifying death would have crippled the space program even more than it already was. Read the book. 1 second after. It's about what happens after an EMP attack on the US. It's based on actual government studies and estimates. It is terrifying. The Nixon administration had a speech prepared for if the moon landing had failed. And it's chilling. You can read it here. https www.archives.gov/files/presidential-library/events/images/exhibit/rn10-6-1-2 PDF. There are over 50 mishaps with nuclear weapons by the US Air Force in the 1950s alone. My previous answer to another post. https www.theblackvault.com/ https www.theblackvault.com/ Not sure if this has been mentioned or not, I'm not scrolling through a million replies. The site is run by a guy named John Greenewald. Black Vault. https www.reddit.com/u/blackvault/ Started putting in FOIA requests when he was 15 and never stopped. Currently has what is arguably the largest privately owned collection of declassified information from the US government anywhere. And the entire archive is accessible for free. Not a direct answer to your question, but anything you want to know about stuff the US government was up to can be found buried in there. And he's taken the time to sort some of the more interesting stuff out to make browsing easier. Cheers. Operation Midnight Climax. The government hired sex workers to dose Johns with LSD for research purposes, so to speak. https en.wikipedia.org/wiki/operation_midnight_climax https en.wikipedia.org/wiki/operation_midnight_climax. Here's one from the Brits and the Aussies in the 50s. Nuclear tests in Maralinga. Oh yeah, some Aboriginals lived nearby. https australianmap.net/monty-bello-islands/ https australianmap.net/monty-bello-islands/ So I research Cold War science, notably nuclear weapons, for a living. So it's hard to find documents that make me a little sick to my stomach. The absolute worst, though, are the ones in which US generals ran through nuclear war plans in their consequences. Here are a bunch of serious, patriotic, hard-working people, all of whom believe in the ideals of the country and all that. And they're having conversations about killing of hundreds of millions of people, nearly all of them civilians, because they believed that this was the only way to keep the same thing from happening to American civilians. Every once in a while there is someone who says, in essence, what the fuck are we doing? It's rare, but it happened. And that is both kind of refreshing and kind of terrible in its own light. Like, if they never asked that, it'd be creepy. But you'd be able to say, well, they really just never saw it as a problem. But the fact that every once in a while someone says something like, this sounds like the Wannsee Conference, the meeting at which the Nazis hashed out the final solution of the Jews, makes it clear that these people, somewhere deep inside, know this isn't really the way that decent people ought to be acting. Here's an account from a war planner at a meeting in 1960. Greater than the meeting took place near mid-December 196,057 at Strategic Air Command, SAC, headquarters at Offutt Air Force Base near Omaha, Nebraska, attended by Secretary Gates, Deputy Secretary Jim Douglas, myself, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and a multitude of general officers representing every unified and specified command from all over the world. Greater than after presenting a few charts he came to one defining the first wave of attacks to reach the Soviet Union. As I recall, these came from carrier-based fighter bombers stationed near Okinawa. Having made this disclosure, he stepped aside. Greater than thereupon 2 airmen appeared, one from each side of the long wall lined with maps, each carrying a tall stepladder. Each airman stopped at the edge of the large map which, we now observed, showed China and the Soviet Union and probably some other nearby features on a heroic scale. Each man climbed his tall ladder at the same brisk rate, reaching the top at the same instant as his counterpart. Each reached up toward a red ribbon which, we now noticed, encircled a large roll of clear plastic. With a single motion, each untied the bow knot securing the ribbon at his end of the roll, whereupon the plastic sheet unrolled with a whoosh, flapped a bit and then dangled limply in front of the map. Greater than each time the briefer described an attack wave, the ballet of the ladder masters would be reenacted. They would untie another pair of red ribbons. A plastic roll would come whooshing down and Moscow would be even further obliterated beneath the little marks on those layers of plastic sheets. There were little marks in other places, too. But somebody noted that a third of Soviet industrial military strength was concentrated in the Greater Moscow area. Hence the concentration of bombs dropped on that region. I recall that the plan called for a total of 40 megatons on Moscow, about 4,000 times more than the bomb over Hiroshima and perhaps 20 to 30 times more than all the non-nuclear bombs dropped by the Allies in both theaters during more than 4 years of World War II. Greater than at the point in the briefing where some bombers were described flying northeast from the Boeing X-37B unmanned space shuttle. It just spent 720 days in space doing God knows what. In East Germany, a committed freedom fighter and her husband had dealt with having her home raided while she was away, being arrested on the way to protests and all sorts of state-sponsored harassment. After the wall fell, she was able to read the documents the Stasi had kept on her and found out her own husband was an undercover agent and had written many reports on her activities with a bloodless banality. Canadian here. The Somalia Affair. https en.m.wikipedia.org/wiki/Somalia_affair. Not sure if it was ever classified, but definitely a horrific scandal. A now disbanded division of the Canadian military torturing a kid to death in the 90s and taking hero pics with him while doing it. I think it's important to remember when your country does something shitty, it's not always the bad guys who can be fucking evil. Operation Northwoods, a plan for a false flag operation that came from the Joint Chiefs of Staff and Department of Defense in 1962 and given to JFK, who turned it down. The plan called for the CIA to commit terrorist actions against U.S. civilians across the United States and frame Cuba, allowing us the right to invade and depose Castro and the communist government there. It was declassified and can be found online at the JFK Library. Terrifying that no one knows or seems to care that this was suggested by our government to the president. CIA invested millions in trying to make half spies. Project Sunshine, where the US government bought remains of dead infants to test for radiation. When they took limbs from them, the parents were never told. One mother wasn't allowed to dress her daughter for her funeral because doctors had removed her legs and didn't want her to find out. This website contains a lot of them. CIA. https www.muckrock.com/unearthing-crest-seers-declassified-archives-100/https www.muckrock.com/news/archive/projects=100 Jeffrey Epstein. https www.muckrock.com/project/Jeffrey-Epstein-files-507/FBI. https www.muckrock.com/project/subjects-matter-fb-files-10/https www.muckrock.com/news/archive/ projects=10. There's a lot more as well. When they performed a lobotomy on Rosemary Kennedy due to her being intellectually disabled. At 23 years of age, her father arranged a prefrontal lobotomy. At the time, the procedure had only being done about 100 times in US. It failed, leaving her unable to speak intelligibly and incapacitated. She was conscious during the operation. They say that the neurosurgeons, or whatever they're called, asked the patient to count from 10 to know when they should stop cutting down. I've heard that they stopped when her speech was incoherent. Saddest thing is that she had to endure it for 64 years, all that because her family couldn't risk any political embarrassment and #X2OOB. I noticed this is more disturbing than terrifying, but I think it fits. My hometown was littered with radioactive waste by the federal government as part of the Manhattan Project. https www.ny-02/02/01/nire-gen/big-atom-waste-site-report-near-buffalo.html. Then we wonder why cancer and thyroid conditions there are the norm. Don't forget to share, like and subscribe for more content.